In this video, we're going to talk about green screens. And mainly, I'm going to give you some tips and tricks that I've learned over the years working as a visual effects supervisor on the best ways to set up a green screen to produce the best results, the best of the best. As some of you know, I've worked in the post-production industry and visual effects for 25 years now. And over the course of the years, I've been a visual effects supervisor, working on set supervising music videos, commercials, and I've also worked on a number of feature films. Now, throughout the course of that process, I've helped determine the best ways to get optimal results out of a green screen setup. And I'm going to share some of those tips with you today. Now, the main reason I'm making this video is I see a lot of people out on Twitch that are using virtual backgrounds. I see people making YouTube videos with their own green screens, and they could just be a little bit better. There's a lot of simple mistakes that they're making that if you just change one or two things about your setup, your key would actually look significantly better and just improve the overall stream quality. And speaking of Twitch, if you don't follow me on Twitch, come on over every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, starting at 9:30 p.m. Pacific. Well, I'll be streaming mostly without a green screen, but I did want to share this knowledge with everybody. So you can go ahead and follow in the link down below. And I hope to see you there. So let's go ahead and jump right into the details on this. Okay, first off, I wanted to start with an example of what not to do. And that's essentially what we have here. And I can point out a number of issues with this setup. First off, you can see all the noise happening right up in there. There's noise right up in here. You can also see I'm casting a shadow on my green screen. Now, I mean, I guess if you wanted that effect, you could, but obviously it's messing with the actual keying because you're getting that shadow keyed. My edging is very rough and feathered, which you don't really want. You want a clean key. And I can also see shadows and wrinkles. If I touch the screen right here, you can actually see that's a wrinkle right there. There's a wrinkle there, and you can actually see it coming through in the image. So what your goal is an absolute perfectly clean key. Now there are options to do multiple passes of keys. You don't have to try and get it all in one. I mean, that's definitely something we do in visual effects. But I'm going to show you here in a second what I actually have set up behind me and what normally I end up seeing most people have once they turn off their keys. So here's the problem. And there's a number of problems, and we're going to outline all of them. First, I'm right against the screen, so you can see the shadows that I'm creating, right? The screen is not pulled tight, so we've got this sag, and we've got drooping, so the screen itself has these shadows actually inside the green screen. And there's wrinkles. For the love of all things green, iron your green screen. It doesn't take that much. Don't have wrinkles. I know you can kind of sort of key them out, but like just iron it. It's not that hard. Iron your green screens, please. So first off, I want to say, before we jump into the actual tips of how to make this better, this is a green screen that I purchased off Amazon for 20 bucks. Now, yes, you don't need an actual green screen, but it does help. Don't worry about, you're going to see chroma versus DigiGreen. There are differences between the two. You could obviously read up about that. The main difference is that DigiGreen is going to be a brighter color and it's going to reflect more light. Now, if you are closer to the screen, that's going to introduce something called spill, and we'll get into exactly that issue there. But for the most part, you can get away with just a chroma green or even chroma blue. It's really dependent upon what your setup is. I mean, obviously, if you're going with green, don't wear a green shirt and try avoiding white shirts. If you're wearing white, you're going to get a lot of bounce light coming off of the screen, and it's going to cause a green tint on your shirt that you're going to have to correct for. And whatever you do not wear this Grinch onesie. I don't care if you're in front of a green screen or just out in public. Don't do it. Just absolutely, there's no reason for it. Please, people, come on. Now, when you're picking a screen, I purchased this one off of Amazon for about 20 bucks. It is an actual green screen. Mostly that just means that it's a solid, thick fabric that you're not going to see through the back of it. whatever you do, don't use like a green towel. Don't use a quilt. I mean, nothing with texture, because literally all you're going to be doing is fighting that texture to try and remove that in your key. You want something smooth, you want something even, and you want something essentially non-transparent. Okay, so now we're actually going to get into the setup tips. And for that, we're going to jump into a program called Maya, which is a 3D environment workspace where I could show you the exact layout of lighting options and distance to the screen and all those types of things that are going to really improve your overall quality. Okay, so this is Maya, and this is a 3D representation of a green screen. We've got someone in front of a green screen. Currently, I have a camera here and one light. Okay, so we can see that our guy here is way too close to this green screen, right? He's practically touching it. And that is creating shadows being cast directly onto the green screen. So we want to find ways to minimize that. Also, additionally, if the light was actually bouncing off of this green screen back onto him, you'd get a lot of green spill and green light reflecting off of the screen back onto his skin. This is really problematic with blonde hair. Gray hair like mine is going to pick it up. Any kind of color, light color shirt, that's going to catch a lot of that green spill. So the more that you can actually create separation, you're going to help eliminate shadows and eliminate spill. And that's also going to help for when we actually set up our lighting in the next section here. So let me go ahead and grab our guy and go ahead and move them away. Now, ideally, you want to be about 6 feet off of that green screen. Now, I know if you're streaming, not everybody has that kind of space to work with. However, in an ideal scenario, if you were in an open room and you had that space behind you, you'd be able to push that green screen back and create that depth that you need for these next tips. So tip 1, create distance from the screen. Tip 2, lighting direction. Now, you see here, I currently have one light. What you want to do is create independent lighting for your green screen, as well as you, or whoever your talent is in front of the screen. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take this light and I'm going to push this all the way up. I'm going to push it behind my guy here, right? So I've got a light here, then I'm actually going to duplicate that and I'm going to put it to the other side. So the goal here is to not put light on my talent, but to actually just create independent lights for my green screen. So you can see here, I'm getting a little bit of bounce back off of that, but you're not going to see that from the camera, which is over here in the front, right? You know, ideally, this is what you want. You don't want any light from the lights coming onto your green screen on your main character. Now, what I'm going to do again is I'm going to duplicate this light and I'm going to move this out. And this is going to be my key light for my character. So I'm going to go ahead and move this. I'm going to adjust this a little bit. I'll bring this up and I'll go ahead and make one more. So we have a key and a fill. So we can get a little bit of directional light here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to dim this light a little bit here. We get a little sense of direction. There we go. Okay. So now I have 2 lights hitting my green screen, one from either side of the green screen. Now, one thing to note is it doesn't have to be from side to side. Sometimes that's easier. If you can, and it works out better for you, you can actually put a light on the ground as well as one above. So if you had a stand or a way to actually get a light from up above, casting down onto the green screen and another one going up from the bottom of the green screen, that's totally fine. It doesn't have to be from side to side. And these can be as close to the green screen as you want. I mean, ideally what you want to do is you want to get these without creating hotspots. So I can go ahead and push those back. And again, now these lights up here, sorry, I was spinning around a little bit. These lights up here that are actually for my main talent here on screen, these I'm going to try and minimize how much light is being cast by them onto my green screen, right? So I'm going to try and put them in directions that aren't going to cast shadows or anything like that. Now, the nice thing is even if these do cast shadows back onto this green screen, that's why we have independent lighting here, because this lighting is actually going to wash that out and brighten that up and help to minimize that situation. So if step 1 was distance from the screen, step 2, lighting direction. Creates light separation and put your lighting in a way that you're not going to overlap your lighting between your on-screen talent as well as your green screen. Now, step 3 is lighting temperature. And if you don't know what lighting temperature is, it's not how hot the lights are. It's literally if they are considered warm, which is going to give you a yellower light, or cool, which is going to give you a bluer, or some people say a white blue light. It's going to have a much starker, cleaner look. The warmer lighting is actually just going to give out a richer color, and it's going to help bring out skin tones as well. So what we want to do is, if you do have lights that you can either adjust the color temperature of, or you can pick bulbs that actually have, say, cool white versus a warm tone. Now, these lights in the back that are hitting my green screen, I want these to be my cool lights, because I want a very bright, clean light that is going to interact well with my green. It's not going to muddy up my green. So these lights are going to be a cool blue. And then the lights up here hitting my talent, I'm going to set these to be warmer lights. So these are going to be warm, yellowy lights. And you can see that here. So now I have my warm lights hitting my talent, and my blue lights, or my cool lights, hitting my green screen. Now, what this is going to allow you to do is create even more separation in color temperature. So your green screen is going to have a bluer, greenish tint to it. And again, this works excellent with blue screens as well. And my talent is going to have more separation in the warm tones, and that's going to help separate your overall skin tones. And now the thing is, you can always go back and color correct your talent. Again, this is about keying and creating the best key possible. So even if you do want a cooler overall final look, that's going to be done in color correction. What you're trying to achieve here is the greatest separation between green screen and your on-screen talent. Now, tip number 4, light intensity. Now, this starts to get into a bit nuanced of scenarios. However, in a perfect world, depending upon what your background is going to be, what your virtual background is going to be, you want to dim or raise the brightness of your green screen to match that background. So for example, if I'm going to be keying this person over a dark background, I actually want to dim my green screen. If I'm going to be keying him over an outdoor scene or something very bright, I actually want to raise the brightness of the green screen. The reason for this is because when you key out the edges, you get into something called anti-aliasing. And so this edge is going to have a feather on it. Essentially, at some point in time, your pixels are going to be blended. Now, when you pull this key and it removes this green screen back here, what's going to happen is, if that green screen's brighter, your feathered edge or your anti-aliased edge is going to fade out to a brighter value. If it's a darker green screen, it's going to fade out to a darker value. So if you go to key a bright green screen and you put your person over a dark background, the issue is you're going to have this very thin light edge that you're going to have a hard time getting rid of, because essentially your pixels at the edge are a brighter value than the material he's being composited over. So let's say I know that the game that I'm playing is generally in dark worlds, right? Everything in the game is actually dark tones. I actually want to go ahead and bring the luminance value of this down. So I've gone ahead and brought the luminance value down. Here you can actually see that I'm now seeing my shadow here. So maybe if this was a real world scenario, maybe I'd try and pull my key over a little bit, maybe rotate my light to actually get that shadow off of my green screen. So now you can see I do have, by bringing the light value down to get a darker green screen behind him, you can see I'm getting a little bit of hotspots on my green screen. This is fine. You're going to be able to key through that no problem. That's not going to be an issue. So if one side's a little bit hotter, it doesn't have to be perfect. I mean, this is a lot easier scenario to correct for than anything you would have with wrinkles and sagging green screens and things like that. Now, you don't want to go very dark. Like if this was a film shoot and I was talking to the director of photography on how to light the green screen and what was preferred for us in post-production, I would tell him either a half stop under or a half stop over. Now that's the exposure on the camera. I would say for general use, you can just eyeball this. Obviously it's not too dark. You can play with what's going to give you the best results. But if you are getting fringing or like a light halo around you, it might be because your green screen is overlit. Now, one of the final things that is going to influence the overall quality of your image and your key is resolution of your camera. So a lower resolution is actually going to give you these chunky blocks along that edge that we talked about. That's the anti-aliasing. So an aliased edge is going to be stair-stepped, and those stair steps are going to be created by pixels, right? So as you introduce more pixels, you can actually create a finer, smoother line. Now, anti-aliasing is the blending of those pixels, basically the feathering of that edge, the blurring of the color value across that edge. So if you have a higher resolution camera, it's going to give you more pixels to create that edge. And even if you're shrinking your image down, you know, if your image ends up being on a Twitch stream, like 320 by 240 in the corner, you still want to shoot at 1920 by 1080 because you're essentially super sampling that image and shrinking it down. And it's just going to help improve the overall pixel density and the quality that you're getting out of your key. It's also going to help hide imperfections because those pixels are going to get blurred and sampled together. So if you do have any minor problems that are still lingering in your key, the higher resolution and bringing that down on screen is going to help that. So just to recap, the 5 tips for laying out and lighting your green screen. Step 1, get distance away from your green screen as much as possible. Try to create as much separation. 6 feet is ideal, at least 6 feet. However, I mean, I couldn't do 6 feet behind me. So obviously, and we're going to see what that looks like now that I've ironed my green screen and we can actually try and do a proper setup. Step 2, lighting direction. We want to create separate lighting for our green screen, get those as close as possible. And you want to light it evenly from both sides. And then I want to have independent lighting for the main talent that is going to be keyed out. Step 3, light temperature. We want to have cooler lights on our green screen and we want to have warmer lights on our talent. Step 4 is light intensity. If we're keying this person over a darker image, we want to lower the overall lighting value of our green screen. If this person is going to be keyed over brighter scenes, we may want to lift that value to be a little bit brighter than the person. Lastly, tip 5 is resolution. Record in the highest resolution you can, no matter what your key is getting shrunk down to. Okay, so here's my updated green screen. And you can see that the edges are a lot cleaner. I'm not getting the noise in the background anymore. We're still getting a little bit of fringing artifact around my hair. Some of this is due to spill that we talked about because I don't have a lot of separation between my green screen. And again, I also didn't try and make this the perfect example. I made it really more of I tried to make it a real world example. You can see here, there is still some shadowing in here. I've got it hung up, so there's still a couple of bends and folds, but it's a much smoother, much cleaner. It's independently lit. I could use some more light in this area, but I didn't have enough lights to do that. So I tried to keep it simple and not try to make it like a perfect production quality. However, you could always go that route. Now in here, we can already see that like in general, it's pulling a much better key. And the only area I'm really having issues with is right up and around my hair. Now, that being said, you know, if we're talking about, say, a Twitch stream, for example, and I'm going to bring this down and roughly I'm going to be in this area, That's where that super sampling comes into play, because you're not going to see all of those fine details anymore. Now those pixels are getting oversampled because of the higher resolution that I'm filming this at. And so now all of those edges and all of those problems, they kind of go away. But overall, the rest of it is a very clear, crisp key, just by making a couple of simple adjustments to lighting, placement, direction, and color temperature. So overall, I hope you found the tips in this video to be helpful. Maybe in the future, we'll do a comparison between OBS's chroma keyer and the RTX broadcast software that is out now. In fact, NVIDIA announced today that they're releasing the RTX broadcast API for developers to integrate directly into software such as OBS. So theoretically, you're going to be able to use AI-based keying directly in your broadcast or editing software, which is fantastic. So I'm looking forward to that. If you do like this content and you appreciate these types of tips, let me know. Obviously, this topic hits close to home for me, coming from a visual effects background, so I love talking about it. If you did find the tips in this video helpful, please like and subscribe. And in the comments below, let me know which tips were the most helpful, or if there's any more information you want on anything discussed in this video. I do appreciate everybody's support, and we'll see you on the next one.